Yes? Yay! Anyway, what I was saying is, I don't know if you or some of your friends have been divorced and remarried, and a lot of times people carry the stigma of being divorced and remarried because of some text that Jesus spoke and some other scripture saying that if you get divorced and you get remarried, man, you are in adultery. And though believers, they believe they're totally forgiven, they're still in the back of the head, for some people, even some of our friends, that stigma of, yeah, I'm forgiven and all, but man, I committed adultery. And we find this in a lot of churches that we go to in a lot of different countries. But I tell you, in the Middle East, because we've been over there several times, the stigma there, especially towards women in marriage and divorce, is just very harsh. And it's along the lines of some of the cultural things and views on divorce and remarriage that just haven't changed, especially towards women. So that's what I wanted to talk about. It's sort of like kicking over some sacred cows. And I've read text and I've read scripture, maybe you have too, where you come across something and it's like, what is this? What? What is this? This does not sound like a good father at all. What? You start, read it again. Because I believe God is a incredible good father. I believe he's an incredible dad. And I believe that we're all his favorites there. And so he doesn't pick and choose, et cetera, et cetera. So, man, I'd read different texts and go, what? This does not sound like a good father. And so for me, it caused me to do a lot of digging, research. I, dig into cultures and linguistic stuff, which I love doing research anyway, until I kind of found an answer that was truth versus, other things. And so with that studying, I wanted to share with you what I found. You can accept it or not concerning divorce and remarriage and this adultery thing. So I made some notes so I won't forget what I'm going to say. But the text that I'm talking about is in Matthew 5, where Jesus talks 31 and 32, where he talks about, if a man divorces a wife and she goes and marries another, she commits adultery. That's the text we want to look at sort of in depth very quickly. In this culture, what Jesus was referring to and where this all set, divorce is one of those issues. Actually, God designed divorce, and you can read it in Deuteronomy, where Moses set up, because of the hardness of men's heart, a bill of divorce is in Deuteronomy 24. Because in that culture, there was no, women had zero rights. And even if there was no criminal or moral failure, women could be divorced just because they didn't bear children, they burnt the biscuits, you just didn't care for them, they didn't work hard enough, whatever. They could be divorced, and it was all up to the man. See, the women had no voice. They had no voice even in getting married. I mean, the whole marriage thing was you pay a dowry if you want this woman. She really had nothing at all to say about it. And I remember when we were in Malawi once, talking to some friends of mine, and they had, and their friends, both had got married paying dowries, which was like, oh, that still happens. Well, yeah, but still happens in some countries. And when a ceremony of marriage and divorce took place, it usually took, 5, 6, 7 days to prepare it and do it. But in this culture and all that Jesus was talking about in Deuteronomy, it just took minutes to get divorced, again, because women were looked upon as, property. Women they looked at marriage like a lottery. They hoped they hit it right. And because their consent was not even considered when they got married in this culture. And as I said, still in some cultures today. And in this text in Deuteronomy 24, and you can look it up, people were just divorced. Men were divorcing their wives like crazy for no good reason. So Moses wrote this, and he said, you must give her a certificate of divorce, basically. And if you study Jeremiah, you see where the Lord divorced Israel, the northern kingdoms of Israel, because of what they did. So, divorce is a tough thing. And when we get through it and we understand it, we need to understand it through the eyes of Jesus, through the eyes of grace, what really it means. And another reason why they would make them give a certificate of divorce is if they split up, let's say, and a woman goes and marries somebody else, then because there's no writ, of course, we have this adultery thing. But here's the deal: at any time, the first husband could come back and take his first wife, because there was no writ of divorce. There's no certificate of separation. And so women were still considered his property, so to speak. I mean, this happened to David. David ran from Saul, as Saul took Michal, his own wife, and gave her to another. And then David, called forth to get her back. And he could do it because there was no writ of divorce. There's no certificate of divorce. She basically had been stolen, another guy had married her. So anyway, without going into a lot of detail of this, the bill of divorce was set up by Moses through the Spirit of the Lord. And Jesus talks about because of the hardness of men's heart. And see, people ask me, well, why do people get divorced? Well, bottom line, without going into any real details, or, I'm sure there's other situations, but bottom line is they're very selfish. People that are extremely selfish, as you know, want things their way and no other way. And that's what's so awesome about coming together, a man and a wife in the kingdom, in grace, is the best way to grow and make a marriage healthy is to give 100% to each other. And, it talks, I think it was in Peter, it says, husband, love your wife, okay? Like Christ loved the church. Let me tell you, I have that verse just, when I first got married, that verse came in so needed in my life. And I'm sure in Sherry's life too. I hope you understand my heart, because man, it gets hard. But if you love Jesus, if you really love the Lord, you're going to pursue his agenda first, right? You're going to pursue what he wants and do what he wants in your life. And so because I love the Lord, because I worship him and he wants me to do this, guess what? He enables me to love my wife like Christ loved the church, which is actually pretty cool. Anyway, I don't want to get off on that. I could talk about that forever. But the concept of divorce, let me assure you that once you're divorced, your category is you're single. It's a total separation of the one into two separate entities. So it's you're single. And a lot of times in applications are people wondering, are you divorced or single? And I understand that. But truthfully, you're very single at that moment when the divorce happens. So let me just, like I said, I just want to take a few minutes to do this. And if you have friends that maybe could use something like this, you may want to share it with them or have them watch this. But it's really, it's crazy what has just happened with text. Matthew 5:31 is the main thing I want to talk about, where it said, if a man divorces his wife and she goes and marries another, he commits adultery. Well, let me just explain. Jesus didn't speak Greek. He spoke Aramaic, and Aramaic was like a Hebrew, Southern Hebrew dialect, so to speak. And so when you consider that, and you go back and read text in the Aramaic dialect and use the words that Jesus used when he spoke this, things start to unfold and make sense. And just let me wind up with this. In the Eastern text, in that Aramaic and different in those cultures, there were two Aramaic words that were translated into one Western word of divorce. So for example, we see in Matthew the use of divorce and divorced. Well, in the Aramaic text, those two words are different. They're not the same words. And so in the first case, he who divorces his wife, the word for divorce is the Aramaic word that means to separate, to go away from. It doesn't mean divorce in the context of what we know today. It means to separate, to leave. In other words, it's like you write a certificate of we're separating for a year, which happens in some states it's required by the court. Or you just, we're going to separate for a year and see what happens. Well, this is the actual Aramaic text that Jesus used here. He who divorces his wife, separates, leaves, but she goes and marries another, she commits adultery. Now, the word in Aramaic for adultery there, like I said, it's not the same word, but the word for divorced there, in adultery, the issue is the other word is complete divorcement, separation, the two becoming one. So simply, the context of this, Jesus said, if someone divorces you and gives you a certificate of separation and you go marry someone else, you're committing adultery. But in context, in the Aramaic language, he's saying, you must understand that if you're getting divorced and it's a complete divorcement, the one become two again, then, and you go and get married, then it's not an adultery. And man, when I found that out, I just thought, this is just right. Because like I said, a lot of times I read text and it's like, what is this? But when I found out that there were different words, it's like, English, our Western translations translate like 7 words out of the Hebrew down to just one word when we're talking about worship, when we're talking about praise. And each word in the Hebrew had a different meaning and a different response. And so it's just like it here. In the Aramaic, when the translation happened, they took the Aramaic words and translated it down just to the one word, divorce. And so I just wanted to really share that with you. Like I said, I don't want to get into a lot of detail or spend too much time here. But just understand, if you or someone you've been divorced and you go and you married again, you are not in adultery. Because you were truly, as the text says, divorced. You become two singles, not in the old culture, but you are totally separated because your divorce was not a separation, a trial, and you didn't get married in the context of a separation. Because, like I said, if you did that, then of course that makes sense. Of course, it's adultery. But you weren't. You were divorced, and you were divorce separated. And you become yourself again. You're single again. So I just want to share that. It's been on my heart a lot because we go to a lot of churches, like I said, and, just not in the States, but around the world where this whole divorce issue is a big deal. I mean, I'm not going to get into this today, but I'll try to maybe do another one sometime. But in a lot of churches still today, and denominations and big ones, if you're divorced, you can't be a pastor. You can't get into ministry. And I'll do that. Maybe I can do another one of these pretty soon and get into that. But oh my goodness, it's just crazy. It's like, hey, you know what? Wow, you just got released. You were a murderer. You killed all these people, and now you're out of jail. You're saved. You're born again. Hey, would you come be the pastor of the church? Would you come speak at the church? But if you're divorced, no, I don't think so. Seriously, that's the culture of many churches today. So anyway, I hope you guys are blessed. We just pray the goodness of God just overtake you in incredible ways, because he has just unbelievable surprises for you. He has unbelievable turns of the corner for some of you, where you've been going this way, but there's a corner you're going to turn really soon. And it will be almost like a surprise. You're going to go, where did this come from? But just be assured the Lord is walking with you, no matter what you're dealing with and what you're going through. And he loves you deeply, and the goodness of God just overtake you just in wondrous, crazy ways, where you just are so shook to the core with joy, you just don't know what else to do. Because that's kind of Daddy is. I mean, he loves us so deeply. Anyway, there you go. I wanted to share that, this kicking over this sacred cow a little bit. And I actually have some more texts that maybe we can get into later as I do some more of these. All right. Bless you guys.